Some awesome.
Never been a day like this day. And I've seen a lot of days. I'm so glad that you're a part of this. I'm glad I'm a part of it. I'm not certain yet what part, but somewhere I'm in there. The first year we had this, Brother Steve and Sister Connie asked us to come, and so we said, I've noticed a lot of people came, and somebody got real angry with me because I didn't have people singing and dancing, and I love all of that. But at least in this particular setting, the time just gets away from us. And there's so many people that has so much to say. I'd rather hear somebody else than I had to spend a lot of time singing. Is that okay with y'all? It's not that I don't like that. But this is not that type of meeting. So if you have a song you want to sing it, you're welcome to do so. But we have so many speakers to speak and so many good things to hear. I prefer just let them do their thing with you. There's a song, and you know it. And I've seen, I first sang this song when I first began to know the Lord. Now I sing it with all the other different meaning. The Mexican people in Old Mexico taught me to really appreciate this song. And you can sing along with me. Never, never, never have I ever been so happy, happy, happy in the Lord. Never, never, never have I ever been so happy in my life before. Took away all my sadness, filled my heart with gladness. I've got all that heaven can afford. Never, never, never have I ever been so happy, happy, happy before. Now, how many can say amen that really fits you?
Yeah.
Man, I'm just having a good thing of sunshine. That's just downright happy, folks. Somebody said I'm just content with a carnation cow. All those good things. Let's sing it. Never, never, never have I ever been so happy, happy, happy in the Lord. Never, never, never have I ever been so happy in my life before. Took away my sadness, filled my heart with gladness. I got all that I can afford. Never, never, never have I ever been so happy, happy, happy before. All right. Somebody want to sing a song? I mean, you're welcome, and we're open to it. Did you want your friend somebody to sing?
No. I was pointing to Mark, but y'all don't want him to sing, sorry.
I want to read before somebody else comes up. How many ever read that book? I think I looked at it. Well, Davis got it from me. In most books, I hit 3 spots, front, center, and back. You know, that's just me. But I can't even get away from the front, let alone go to the back and the center. So if you don't have the book, I would suggest you might get it.
Yes.
The emerald tablets. Some writing from 35,000 years ago. And it'll just do something for you. And so just a few verses. This is the first one. And I've heard journey, I'm on a journey, I'm on a journey, and then somebody says, I am the journey. That's what it said. Love is the beginning and end of the path. Love is the beginning and the end of the path. For in love lies oneness. What do you think about that? In love lies oneness. Can I ask this question? Do you think that there is any real division in love?
No.
What do you think about that? Love is the beginning and the end of the path. For in love lies oneness. No divisions.
When you were saying, reading that, I was just thinking, and what is the path? The path, for those of you who think that way, is a circle. For those of you who think that way, it's a sphere. And so when you discover that you're at the end, there is no end like there is no beginning. And it's the same all the way around. That's the property of what would be.
Yes.
Is there a beginning of love and the ending of love?
No.
And that's the reason. When man conquers death, he also has mastered life. And to him, both cease to exist. When man conquers death, he also has mastered life, and to him, both life and death cease to exist.
Amen. Because you are. I am.
For a long time, I've taught, and you've taught, others have taught, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And I don't know if I heard somebody say this, or whether they come from in near. But somewhere I heard, if I get rid of the tree of evil, I have to get rid of the tree of good.
Yeah.
Because to have both of them is carnal-minded, to have one is carnal-minded. You know how hard that was for me to swallow? Do away with good? Now I can understand doing away with evil, but to get rid of the tree, you can't leave half of it standing. If the tree goes, it all goes. Amen? And let me ask you the question. In your mind, in your thinking, is there still good and evil, right and wrong? Man, some of this stuff it's been hard on me. But see, I now know that is reality. And it was said last night, Christianity, including me, taught so many illusions and then pretended that they were truth. And so we come to the point where we no longer pretend. I just want truth. All right. This beautiful lady is going to come and share her heart with you. And let me, there's so many that has so many good things to say. We just have to take what we can take and go with it. That'll be okay. Martin, Gary, Lynn, Sister Barbara, there's so much to hear, and I want to hear all of it. Would y'all mind if we stay here till 1 or 2 o'clock before lunch? And then you'll have a hamburger and come back and stay till 4 or 5 o'clock? And then go take a nap and come back at 7 o'clock and stay till midnight?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
I'm just going to stand up here just for the prop. When I saw Ray getting ready this morning and he put on his white pants, I thought, oh no. I said, what shirt did you wear with him? He said, black. And I said, I had planned on wearing white pants and a black top. So I put my red shoes on so that y'all could tell us apart. Y'all would know who was We really didn't have it planned, just things happen like that sometimes. But I want to say it's so good to see you all, every one of you. We love y'all so much. And this is always a great time for us to come to this beautiful place. Thanks to Steve and Connie. I want to honor them always and give them thanks for finding this and always setting it up for us. Y'all bless us so much by this. And I talked to Ray this morning and I said next year we need to get our company to come a day early, and we come here a day early so we can come and enjoy this place all day before we start our meetings and rest and enjoy being here, because once we get started we don't have time to go out and enjoy anything. So it's just always such a great place to be. And I'm glad that y'all all sacrificed to be here, to come. And I just want to take a few minutes. I'm one of the people that I can't plan anything, because every time I plan it and I write it all down and I have it all planned, I get up and open my mouth and nothing I have planned comes out. And so I just quit trying to plan things and just let it flow. And I'm one of them. I haven't searched out the scriptures and know the meanings that Lynn does. Thank God that He has been put in our life, that He has done such a wonderful thing of opening up. And that to us, I had got to the point that I had laid my Bible down because I wasn't finding what I needed in there anymore. And it was more of a hindrance to me than it was a blessing, because of the fact that I had so many traditional teachings of what that said and so many images that were built in me of what I was taught, that it was hard to talk about any of it without all of them images and coming back and haunting me to keep me from seeing something else. And my language had to change totally. It was hard for me for the longest to even use the word God because of the image that came with that. And when, these things don't just crumble in our life overnight. They don't fall away. It takes sometimes a little bit of time. And it's like now, it's hard to remember what them images was. It's hard to, they're gone. They're gone. I mean, I can't even comprehend them enough to understand why the people that are still there have any kind of belief in any of it. But yet I did at one day. I did. And so, it's this constant movement that we're on that brings us to where we are today. And every experience that we're here to experience is setting us up for the next experience. Right. And when you look back and you see why you look at something that you questioned was going through, and you wonder, why did that have to happen? Why did I go through that? And you got hurt or disappointed in it, and you look back and you see what followed that, it all begins to make sense. And you see that it was necessary for you to get to the next place. And I see that in my life, so much of my walk, of where I've been, what I've gone through, even having one of the strictest, I think, religious backgrounds that was dogmatic in the control of women especially, but very strict and domineering to stick with their standards, and you had a whole lot more don'ts than you did what you could do, and you just, this such angry, vengeful God that we had. I was just so terrified as a child to go to sleep at night without going through my routine of my prayers, because if I didn't, Jesus was coming back in the night and he was going to take me and send me to hell because I forgot to do a prayer that might have asked for forgiveness for something I didn't even know if I did or didn't do. I mean, it was really a terrifying experience, but it was necessary to get me where I'm at today. And so I look at all of these experiences, and I can look back now and not judge them as good, bad, right, or wrong. They were experiences that I was sent here to have to get me somewhere else. And here a while back, as many of you know that have watched me on Facebook, I try to walk 10,000 steps a day. So I get outside where we live. We've got a beautiful place to walk, and all except for the winter time. I mean, it's cold there, and so I don't enjoy getting out there quite so much in the cold. So a lot of times I'll go in to the sportsplex and go on the walking track. But I'll try to get outside and walk. And here a while back, while I was still walking outside before it had gotten too cold, I had come to a place in me, and I no longer look outside of me to blame somebody for what I'm feeling. If I like what you do or I don't like what you do, I don't look at you to blame you for doing what you're doing. I look at me. What is that reflecting in me? What am I feeling in that? Is this something that came for me to see something, to know something, to grow? And I had come to a place that I was feeling like I had lost my joy, and that I just felt like I'm just existing, and I want to look around and say, well, I'm missing my grandkids, I'm missing my kids, because I live 12 hours from both sets, in opposite directions, and I don't get to see them quite as often as what I would like to. If I was closer to them, I would see them a lot more. And yes, I do get that, and I miss them. And so I'm starting to look in and think, okay, it's just because I haven't been with my kids and my grandkids, and they bring me so much joy. And then I said, no, I have got to be that joy. I've got to find that joy in me. And I'm walking. We had a talk before I left the house, and I said something to him. I heard when I woke up that the reason, because I asked, well, why do I feel this way? And I heard, you've lost your song. And I thought, my song? I didn't know I had a song. And so we were talking, Ray and I were talking about it, and I got out and started walking, and I started crying, and I said, I don't understand. I don't understand. How have I lost my song? What is my song? How have I done that? What is my joy? What have I lost? How do I find it? And I'm walking, and I'm crying, and I'm talking. And since I'm out in the country, I can talk to myself, and there ain't nobody to see me to think I'm crazy. So I do that. I just walk and talk. And I'm crying, and all of a sudden, I remembered this little song that I remembered singing back in Sunday school. I've got the joy, joy, joy down in my heart. And I don't even know if I remembered all the words or not, but I just started singing what I remembered, that I've got the joy, joy, joy down in my heart. I've got the joy, joy, joy down in my heart. I've got the joy down in my heart to stay. Or whatever, I don't know. And I just sung what I knew, and I just kept on, and I was bawling, and I was singing it, and I was walking. And I'll just, after almost one round out there of walking, something broke in me. And I began to see that the joy that I'm looking for and the joy that I want is the joy that I am, that I have always been. And no man gave me that. And no man can take that away from me. But no man can give it back to me if I can't find it. It's always there. But I didn't know how to tap back into that joy. And I started saying, okay, I'm calling upon the joy that I am, that I was created as. I'm calling that forth to feel this being now, to feel me. And at the time of my walking, it had not been about a month before I had fallen and I had hurt my knee, and I couldn't walk down a flight of stairs, or I couldn't walk down a slope, and it was just huge pains in my knees. And his son has a background in physical therapy, and he said, you need to rest it. You need to ice it and rest it, or you will get where you can't use it. You'll regret it if you don't do that. And I said, but if I do that, I can't walk. And he said, but I'm telling you, it's only going to get worse if you keep irritating it. So I iced it a few times, but I still was going to walk. I wanted to get my walk, and I had determined I'm going to walk. And so, as I had been walking, my knee was hurting, but I was so caught up in what I was saying and doing, all of a sudden I realized all of that knee pain was gone, and it has not hurt since. And it's amazing what, when we get in places in our lives that we do to our physical body without realizing what's happening. We will blame things that are happening in our physical body on a lot of things outside us when it's what's going on inside that's causing these things. And I would have never connected what I was experiencing with releasing the pain and that, and I never had to quit walking to rest my knee. It finally quit, and I mean, it was excruciating pain. But to find that joy, I hear Barbara so many times, she has said, find your joy and walk in your joy. She said that to me several years ago, and I hear that echo a lot, to find your joy. And yes, there is outside things in our lives that brings us great joy. But it's the joy that we are as the creative being, as the divinity that we are in this flesh, that we pull on, that we tap into. It is the love that I am. If I am everything that the Creator is, that I am that joy, I am that love, I am that peace. And when we talk about love, I can look through this room and I love you guys. I love each of you. And the love that we feel for one another sometimes is just a great emotional feeling that we have an affection for, because I like what I feel in your presence, so I love you. If we get in somebody else's presence, that kind of rubs us the wrong way, and we don't like what we feel in their presence, it's easier, or it's a little harder to say I love you to them. You know what I'm saying? Because our love sometimes is very conditional. But when we talk about the love that we are, that divine, infinite love that we are because of being of the creation that we are, it is like, the best way I can describe it, I give birth to 2 boys. And as mothers, we know what a mother's love is. I mean, I can't relate to what a dad's love is because I'm not a dad, I'm a mother. But if I set that baby, gave birth to that baby, and I loved it so much, we have conditions that we want to put on that child as it grows to meet our expectations, because we have certain expectations we want out of that child. But if we created that being and we set that being down and say, okay, I love you so much, I'm going to let you be exactly who you came here to be without interference from me. Now, could we do that? When it does something we think it shouldn't? But you know what? When we're created, we were created to be exactly and experience exactly what we come here and set out to experience without any kind of restriction put upon us.
Amen.
Without any kind of condition put upon us. To say, if you do not turn around and honor and recognize me as who I am, then you really don't love. It never said that to us. Whether we ever honor the divinity that created us or not, it still could not love us any less. It give us full permission to be anything we could imagine ourselves to be.
Amen.
Anything we wanted to experience without it ever saying, I will pull my love back from you. You look at the sun, and the sun does exactly what it's supposed to do up in the sky. It is just the right place from the earth to give us life on this earth, to make it green, to help us have life, to sustain our life. And it shines all the time, whether we see that sun shining or not. It never ceases to do what it's doing. And it never says to the earth or the creation on earth, you owe me your life. And if you don't honor me, I will not shine up on you today. It never does that. Is that love? That's love. Can we have that for another? Anybody? But the most important thing is, can we have that for ourselves? And as a woman, and I look in that reflection of that mirror, and I am so hard on this being. I can see the wrinkles. I can see the age spots. I can see the fat where I don't want it. I can see the flaws that I think I carry in a physical body. And I can criticize that creation. But when can I look in that reflection and I can see love? That I can love it as it stands before me and recognize the divinity that I am. The creation that I am. I came here to experience every wrinkle, age spot, every imperfection that I would think I had as a human being, the physical being that age has put upon me. And I've said many times, aging is not for sissies. And I don't always like the aging process, but if I can look at that reflection and feel the love for the divinity that is standing there looking at me, that's when I know I can love another in the same way of what we are to know the creation of love, to know what love stands for. That is my desire, is not to look at that and see all of the things I wished I could change. I'm sorry. Here lately, I haven't watched TV. I was telling Barbara some of this last night. I haven't watched TV in several years to really just watch a program or to sit down and we flip through the channels and watch a little bit here and there. But here lately I had got me an iPad and I got Netflix and I started watching some series that I didn't even know had been on TV. But I've been drawn to all this supernatural series. Why, I don't know, because I never seemed to be that way before. But all of the abilities that we would think is supernatural, and I would see these people doing these things and thinking, we all have that ability, we all have that ability, we all should be walking in that. Why can't I tap into that? Where am I lacking? Where's the block here to think that I'm less and I can't do some of this stuff? And series after series after series I would watch and I'd find another one and I'd find another one. And I watched one called, I don't know if any of y'all called Being Human, and it was about vampires and werewolves and ghosts, witches, and one of the stories in there, the werewolf was he hated the fact that he had that in him, that he had been what he thought cursed with this curse, that on a full moon he turned into this wolf.
And he thought he was such a monster. And in this series, the ghost that was in there that was his friend had the ability to go into him. When he sat in meditation, he could see in his mind the wolf trying to take over him. And he was running from that. And she went in with him in his mind to try to help him face whatever he was facing. And in this, he's constantly running. And she said, is that all you do is run? And he said, I can't stop. It will catch me and it will kill me. It will devour me if I stop. And he said, he would hide behind a tree, and he would sit there, and he'd say, look, there it is, it's coming, we gotta go. And he'd run and run and run. And finally she said, stop. And he said, why? She said, that is you you're running from. That is you you're running from. Stop and accept it. Look at it, face it. And he turned and looked, and he saw this beautiful wolf. And he said, oh, you're so beautiful. And he stood there, and the wolf comes closer to him. Finally, he reached out, and he petted, and he blessed that and accepted that part of him. And he no longer ever had to run from his identity. And when I'm watching that, I thought, oh my gosh, how much shall we run and run and run and run from our identity that we did not know was going to be the greatest thing that could ever happen to us. But because we didn't know, we thought it was the demon, we thought it was the evil, because of traditions and teachings, and we've run and we've run and we've run. And we haven't taken time inside us to stop and let it and turn around and face that and say, it is beautiful. It is beautiful. I will accept my demon, whatever, and look at it and embrace it with joy and let it be a part of me that I am, instead of running from something that I thought would be bad or be wrong. I did that with fear. I told y'all, I think last year, with hate. I did that with hate, and when I was able to turn and face it and accept that that was part of my emotions, it became something more useful for me and no longer was a terror to keep me afraid, and it loosed so much of my shoulders and my neck, and I had constant shoulder pain before that, didn't I, right? Constant shoulder pain, my arm, and I could not lift my arm like this. I could lift it like this to come around. And since that day, I've not had that shoulder pain, have I? That's all been gone. And it's things that we have. We have a beautiful system. We have a magnificent system that we have been placed in. This machinery, no man can duplicate it. And it can heal itself. It can do marvelous things. It operates without me having to think. To pump the blood through these veins. I don't have to think that I've got to stop and take a breath. It just does it. It's a wonderful, wonderful creation. And it has 5 senses, or 7 senses we've learned, and maybe many more. But that emotional realm that's attached to us, that gives us the total experience of a physical reality, we have been taught so many misconceptions about it. So many things that aren't right. The mystery that, the history that we've been taught about who we are is one of the things that we need to let go of and embrace the mystery of who we are. And it's what he is teaching in his form. She is teaching in her form. It is about being that creation that we are to be, to walk it in this flesh, to be that manifestation of a deity on earth, to bring a balance to this being, where I can look in that mirror. I can stop running in here. I can embrace that, every one of them emotions, and say, it's problem, but I will no longer be trapped in it. And I will no longer let them be trapped in my body to call disease. Can we do that? I think we're all on that. And you know, the one thing, the more that I think I might get a hold of and know and see in all of this, the more I realize there's so much more I don't know. I just want to be. I just want to be. I'm not afraid of death, and I realized that a long time ago because I don't see death anymore. I see it changeable, so to speak. You know, I look at the little baby back here and kind of back there, and if the day they were born, an outfit was put on them, and that outfit somehow grew with them, and they never changed from the whatever it was that was placed on them, and wore that all of the years of their life on this earth, it would get tattered and worn. But that's what we are. We are a garment, basically, this machinery that works so well, and it gets tattered and worn. And so it does not bother me, the thought that I might change that someday. But what I realized was I wasn't afraid to let that one go, but sometimes I'm afraid to live in that one. I'm afraid sometimes to live life here. It's not death that scares me, sometimes it's life that scares me. Because you know what, sometimes life can be hard. It's very emotional. It takes our emotions in all kinds of way to extreme sometimes. From the saddest that we could think of, from the angriest that we could be, to the most joyous, wonderful that we can feel. We get to experience all of that. But sometimes that's not easy because of traditional teachings and things that's been put upon us. And so to be able to enjoy every single one of them and to live life and enjoy it and see the being that I am, experiencing everything I came here to experience, to enjoy it, to not judge it, to not deem it good or evil, just as an experience. And I've learned so much. And I've learned that if I go through an experience and I don't learn from that experience, I'm going to go through it again and again and again. And guess what? It gets harder each time you go. And it's more in your face each time you face it. And it's like, one day I said, I want off the merry-go-round. I'm tired of this. I've got to get it. This is my last go on whatever that was that I was going through at the time. Because it seemed like it was a cycle that happened every single year. And it would peak at a certain time of the year, every year. And I look back and I could see how that was doing that every year. And I said, I'm tired of this merry-go-round. Let me off. Let me learn what it is. Because each time it came, it was more difficult than it was the time before. But we repeat them patterns throughout our lives all the time. People do. People get in and out of marriages that are sometimes violent or doesn't seem to be a healthy thing. But it's always the other person's fault. But it keeps happening. You just change faces. And then sooner or later, you've got to stop and say, what am I not getting here? Whatever the deal is that you repeat, what am I not getting here? I have a cycle with my weight. When can I love myself as I am and not concentrate on whether I should be thinner or I should be something else? I want to honor Lynn and Barbara for what they teach, what they bring to us. Oh my gosh, I could sit and listen to both of them forever and ever. I mean, it's just what they unfold in me, what they open in me.
It's amazing. And I thank you both so much for what y'all bring. And I'm so blessed that God, that you're part of my tribe. We're just part of each other. And we got to know each other in this realm, this go around, whether we've done it many times, who knows. But it's marvelous how we all can fit together and learn and know and love. They're not the only ones. We've got many, many others that have brought me so far, taught me so much. And I know there's a storehouse right here of so much that I could yet learn from. And if I could just take a day to sit down with each one of you individually and spend that day to open and see in each other, oh my gosh, think of what would happen if we could all do that with each other. The expansion in us would happen. That's what this weekend is doing to us. It's expanding us. You know, they say there's nothing new under the sun. Of course, we know everything's not under the sun. Everything in our realm is, and this that we're on earth at. But whatever is in consciousness has always been there. It's expanding. I'm not going to different dimensions of consciousness. My awareness to what's already there is being expanded and opened to what's there. And there's so much more to be opened. So much more to be opened. And I'm just thankful that I'm at this period and point in time that it's opening for me. I love you all. Thank y'all for letting me talk a little while. And I would love to hear more out of Barbara. I don't know about y'all.
Are you understanding the principle of sowing and reaping? Do you understand that almost everything, if not all things in our experience, we have brought to ourselves?
Yes.
That right now we are just practicing our divinity in a place, a safe place that's bound by only 120 years of life at its maximum. You realize that this is an incubator for the divinity to couple with its partner humanity to learn how to express its godhood. And we have been given keys to overcome this place of limitation, this mortal realm of 120 years. We have been given keys. And one of the very most important keys of the kingdom or transition of the age is the cessation of judgment. Okay? Because with our judgment, we incubate these seeds into our lives' experiences. I want to give you a specific example. This is a very interesting story. Again, it happened within the last week and a half, 10 days or so. Years ago, my grandson, Ryan, when he was just a little tyke, 2 or 3 years old, he imagined himself all the time being shot with his army guys. And it got to the point where we were very concerned and thought he was getting a little bit over the edge, a little crazy. And so his parents, my son and my daughter-in-law, decided that they were going to take his army toys away. And I said, well, why are you going to do that? And they said, it doesn't matter where we are or what we're doing. Cole, that's my grandson's name, imagines himself being shot. And he'll go, pow, 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 and he'll make the sounds. And then he'll... We just said, we just don't think that that's a healthy thing for him to do. This was back, boy, early 2000s. And so they took away all his army gear, all his little army men, all the little guns and everything that he used to play with. And so it came time for Grandma and Grandpa to watch him. And the first thing he did was he tore into the house and he went to the toy closet. And he threw open the door to get his army stuff out. And of course, we knew that he wasn't allowed to play with them, so Grandpa had put them up to where he couldn't see them. He comes in and says, Grandpa, where's my army stuff? And he said, Nicole, your mom and dad said that you might need a break from it because you're getting a little crazy. He goes, oh, it's too late for that. 3 years old. So the other day, I had two of my youngest grandchildren over, and they're both boys, and they were upstairs playing with their Army stuff. And I walked up to say, hey, what's going on? What are you guys doing? And playing with the Army stuff. And I said, let me tell you a story about your brother. And so they listened with just laughter and glee as I told on their older brother, and about how he got really carried away and pretended to get shot and even had the body movements, and we were like, wow, this kid is really getting into this Army stuff. And they laughed, and I walked downstairs then, and it hit me, and I was overcome with concern that my grandson had sewed this into his reality using joy and fear and thrill and action and whatever else. He sewed that into his reality. And as a grandmother, knowing that we can by our thought and focused emotion, I realized that I may need to say something. So I let it marinate a couple of days, and I told Lyle about it. And I said, what do you think that I should do? He said, I don't know. So what I did was I just started focusing life to Cole, and I started projecting just out of me joy and happiness, and I was picturing him with a long life, and all of these things, just doing what I know how to do to emote. These are powerful, to emote a good path for him. But what authority do I have as a grandmother? I don't know. I don't know if that can supersede anything that he's planted. So I just, again, this is a learning situation for me, so I just let it marinate. Just sat with it. Well, Chris, my middle son, who was over in Iraq, suffers from PTSD. And for the last several months, he's been hearing gunshots in the middle of the night. And he really lets it get to him because it's very real. It's very real. For anyone that suffers from PTSD, it's hard to separate what is reality and what is not. So he was losing sleep, nauseous during the day, and upset, and talking to us about, I think I need to go see a counselor. I'm struggling with this. I can hear it. I can hear the gunshots. And what do you suggest? So we set him up with a counselor, and he's been making phone calls and trying to get an appointment. And so all of these things are going on in the periphery, in the background. So then I had the weird thing happen with my gums. And how, it just manifested like that. And as soon as I kind of acknowledged what was happening, it went away. So I'm driving down the street with Chris, and I just look over at him and I say, you want to hear something really weird that happened to me? He said, no, let me go first. And I said, okay. He said, Mom, the gunshots that I'm hearing. He said, I don't think it's from Iraq because it's a black revolver that I see, and we didn't have those guns in Iraq. And I'm also hearing a shotgun. He said, I don't think that it's PTSD, I think it's a premonition. Somebody's going to be shot. And as a grandmother, I just went, oh my God, oh my God. And so I want to be careful with what I emote. I want to be careful because I recognize I'm creating. Always we're creating. And so I said to him, let me tell you what's been happening. Let me tell you about this. And he said, that makes sense, Mom, that something is impending. Something is on the horizon, and we must be able to stop it. So again, I get home, and I run into Lyle, and I said, Lyle, what do we do? And he said, well, I think you need to tell Ryan. I wouldn't tell Jenny right now, but just tell Ryan and see what he says. So I had Ryan over that afternoon, and I told him the whole story. And I'm just so terribly thankful that as odd as all of these things are, my kids listen. And they pay heed to some of this newer ground that we're beginning to walk upon. And he said, well, Mom, what do you think we should do? And I said, he was a child and under your care at that age. And I think we can go to his garden and remove any of those seeds. Because he did not plant them with malice or vengeance or anything like that. And I said, so I don't think there's a deep root to this. So how about if you and I just right now, we agree together that being shot is not going to be a part of his life's experience. Him, in his school setting, no matter what it is, that this situation will not come to pass. That we have that authority to root up and to pull down. And he said, I agree. And I said, so at this very moment, as father and grandmother, we say no to this life experience. And do you know what? That heavy feeling just whoosh, evaporated, left completely. And my son Chris, who had struggled every single night with gunshots and waking up and feeling that terror, has gone now 5 nights without gunshots. So, interesting.
Hello.
We have to pay such close attention because right now, and I talked with Mike a little bit about this morning, we are collapsing time when we begin to step out of the mechanism that drives and sustains this reality. So we are beginning to step into our godhood as we step out of this age. This age is driven and created by you, by humanity as a whole, because we focus on the driver, the polarity, the mechanism that allows for the creating of our reality. We focus on, is it positive or is it negative? And what this does, focusing on this issue, whatever it is, as good or evil, and providing the emotional current to go along with it, will create our reality. So at some point in time when Jesus said, hey, they said she's, in adultery and we want to stone her, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. For whatever judgment you judge another will fall on your own head. He was teaching us about a time loop of judgment. He was teaching us how to create and sustain our reality. But when he said, do not judge, what he was saying is, if you remove this from your human experience, you will transition the age. And you will enter into a whole different place of being. But as long as we continue to look at a circumstance and judge it as either positive or negative, right or wrong, good or evil, we will continue to create whatever it is that we're focusing upon. It is law.
Yes.
It is law. So we can call time out. And we're learning how to do this. This isn't easy because it's not human to do this. It is divine. So we're surrendering over that part of us, like the Christ sitting on the donkey, bearing this human part of us to death. We have to surrender our position and our perspective of judgment continually. Now, if you turn your book, go to the very last page, I think it is. It's past the blue part. You can see some wisdom from the Mayan calendar. How many of you have heard of Ian Lumskull? How many of you have watched the video, The Mayan Calendar Comes North? Very good stuff. But what this is showing is a kind of a side view of a pyramid. And what Ian did was he took each level and ascribed to each level a level of our consciousness, which began at a single cell. Yes, I'm a proponent of evolution. I do believe that what the I Am spoke came into being over 7 periods of time. I think that our ideas of creation and evolution have to completely be turned upside down because they're not what we think it is. But if you look at this, the cellular, then there was a mammalian consciousness. And have you ever seen who's fed catfish? If you notice, when you feed catfish, they all are gobbling up their food, and then all of a sudden something happens where they all flip. Have you seen that? And you wonder what in the world is going on, because they have this signal. And not just one flips in the water, but when we do it, hundreds flip in the water and splash. I mean, if they're close to the shore, they have this instinctual thing that as a mammal, they respond as a group. The same with a flock. You've seen a flock, how fast they can twist and turn, and all of a sudden they all take off. That is a level of consciousness. Okay, moving on. Familial is a level of consciousness. Tribal is a level of consciousness. Regional is a level of consciousness. And national, I want to talk to you about these levels of consciousness because it plays into understanding judgment. Democrats and Republicans have a national consciousness. God bless America. I'm an American. That's a national consciousness. Nothing wrong with it. It's part of our evolutionary journey. But it gives you a good idea of where you are in the scheme of things. Your judgment about your nation and your rights will keep you in a national mindset, will keep you in a national consciousness. Are you following me? The next thing, the next place in consciousness, and I believe a lot of us are in our nationalistic consciousness, but we're beginning to see the oneness. We're beginning to understand who we are as a race, who we are as beings that are beginning to transition into another way of being, another level of consciousness. So we are seeing ourselves as one world. One world, you see the airplanes that have the little insignia on them, one world. We're beginning to understand our interconnectedness with all peoples, whether you're in deepest, darkest Africa, or here in one of the, or here. We're beginning to see our connectedness, so we have a consciousness that eclipses a national consciousness. Now, I can remember back in the day, a very staunch Republican here, and I would never even think of voting Democrat, but that's where my consciousness was. And now I can't think of even voting. I don't vote because I'm not there anymore. I know that I'm called to something different. That's not to say that people that vote are wrong. Vote as long as you feel you're supposed to vote. But there comes a time when your consciousness begins to eclipse the boundaries of nations, and you begin to think more globally. Okay? And so now what's happening is we're going from globally, we're becoming aware of our galaxy. And there are energies that are being entertained all around us. So we have a galactic consciousness, and beyond galactic is universal. So you can see, and its time is speeding up now, you can see where we are in the scheme of things. So I tell you that just to encourage you, as far as judgment goes, just begin even with your sphere of influence. How can I step outside of judgment? If I am called to transition the age, and I believe every single one of you in here is called to transition the age, then what do I need to do? What authority do I have as one that's up and coming in this next place of understanding? How can I do this? How can I help transition the age? And I'm going to encourage you today that judgment is going to be the biggest stumbling block for us when the scripture talks in Hebrews chapter 5. You've heard me say this is one of my hallmark scriptures. You know, Paul is rebuking them because he says, look, I want to tell you about immortality. I want to tell you about the Melchizedek order. And if you remember, Jesus was recorded that he was after the Melchizedek order. Now, is that after being like, or is it after being, I want to apprehend you? Do you follow? I am after the Melchizedek priesthood. I am after you. Because you have something to do in this age that is forerunning and that is going to break the way into a whole different level and area of thought. He said, I long to teach you about these things, but I can't because you're babes and you've been drinking milk. Meat is for those that are of full age, having had their senses exercised to discern good from evil. We are supposed to have experienced everything that we've experienced, positive and negative, good and evil. We are supposed to be fully exercised in discerning these things for the purposes of understanding that out of our body comes a current for creation. It is necessary. So in Hebrews chapter 6, it goes on and says, therefore, leaving these principles behind, let us go on to perfection. For it is impossible to renew one in repentance once they have tasted the good word of God, the power of the age to come. So I'm saying that the powers of the age to come are being apprehended now, in this moment. And each one has to look at their lives and discern and understand what is in your garden, what you want there, and what needs to be rooted out. What have I created by my thoughts? What have I set in motion for my future? Take time and ask your higher self, your intuitive center, to show you what is in your path, what you have set for yourself in your path. And ask how it is that it's there, and you'll be shown, and ask what you need to do to root up and to pull up and to plant what it is that you want there. Now I'm here to tell you that when man, in our evolutionary consciousness, decided to eat from the tree that produces the fruit of polarity, that we became split into two, into male and female, and we became bound by time and mortality. Because if you are going to create by duality, polarity, whatever you want to call it, by knowing good and evil, you're limited to 120 years. You're limited. So you have to come to the place where you are convinced, where your head is set like flint, that you are not going to continue with the operating system of this passing age. Because there has to be a people group that will overcome death. There has to be. There has to be. And why not us?
Amen. Praise, hallelujah.
Why not us? Why not us? So here and below is hell. This is fear, fight or flight, survivalism, and emotionalism unchecked. This is what we're using to create the world as it is right now. Our world is fear-based, is it not? Yeah. And what did Jesus demonstrate? He said, hey, I want to come out there with you. I painted this for y'all. This is lower 3 chakras. This is the place where it's transmuted or where it changes currency, and this is the upper 3. What does this look like? What are the colors of hell? I've said there is a hell, and this is it. This is where we're creating right down in here, from fear, fight, flight, survivalism, emotions unchecked. This produces a very dense world, and it also produces a very mortal world, where your bodies are subject to disease and death and destruction, because you are not creating from above this line. So, just by the allegory, the story, where did Jesus walk? Didn't he? And isn't that a beautiful picture? So when you surrender your judgment, you're creating from here and below, when you surrender that, this currency begins to ascend your column, your chakra column, your spinal column. It's the 7 churches that we know was written about in the book of Revelation. And it comes to this place of the heart, where it goes, undergoes a transforming process. And then you begin to walk above the waters, and you create from a different place. This currency is still necessary, but it goes to a place of ascension where we're not creating mortally. Do you follow? Judgment, harsh reality, down here. Transmutation occurs in the heart, and then we begin to create from these upper levels of consciousness. Now, Evis, can you stand up a minute? Do you mind if I talk a little bit about? Okay, so when energy begins to move up the spinal column, you can feel it. And you can feel it when it gets to this place. And sometimes it can be very severe. When we were at Lynn's last year, actually I'm going to back up and tell a little bit more. When we were in Old Hickory years ago, I did an exercise with the people in the room just to begin to stir up the energy that sits at the base of the spine. And I said, if anyone feels something or has any kind of pain, please raise your hand. And so when we got to the heart chakra, Avis raised her hand. You want to tell them what you felt at that time?
Severe pressure. Like I had an elephant sitting on my chest. I mean, I felt like I was having a heart attack. Well, I felt the pressure like I was having a heart attack. I thought I couldn't breathe anymore. I was really laboring to breathe, wasn't I?
Yes.
Yeah, it was very, very, very painful.
And see, in working in deliverance ministry, I mean, I cast more demons out of, I mean, they're just, in that reality, they're real. And negative energy came out of people. And it still happens. The gift is still there, and it's really in every one of us to move negative energy from the cradle of hell and bringing up the spinal column for an ascension experience. And so what I saw in Avis was what was typical during deliverance sessions. So I knew there was negative energy that had settled in the heart chakra, this energy center. So all of the experiences from her life that were hellish were seeking to come up here, come up to a higher place, to be transformed, to be transmuted, to be transfigured, whatever you want to call it. But when it gets to a certain place in your chakras, you may experience a little bit of congestion. You can experience down here. I've seen people experience congestion real low, having dealt with a lot of very horrific things in their life. And I've watched people as it begins to climb the ladder of the chakras and come out and be completely made whole. So now when Jesus was talking, the story that Jesus told when he was feeding the 5,000 with the fish and the loaves, it said he had compassion on them because they were sheep without a shepherd. Now again, we project that externally, and we say, oh, those poor people, sheep without a shepherd. But really what the Kundalini energy is, this energy that sits at the base of the spine, this ascension, what happens is it climbs up your chakra channel, comes up around the back of your head, and looks just like a shepherd's staff. So they were sheep without a shepherd, and he had compassion on them. So what's happening is we are learning to shepherd ourselves with this energy that begins to leave behind this former place, this place of hell and death and mortality and sickness and disease. And as it climbs the channel, we are beginning to experience life. And I'm telling you these things because as you become aware of energy movement, many of you, if not all, will begin to become sensitive to its movement, and you will understand exactly what's happening in your body. You'll have pictures and images come to your mind of things that may have happened to you in your past. What is happening is you are becoming aware of what's in your garden. Remember the scriptures that says, drink from your own well and tend to your own garden? As you tend to your own garden, when one rises, we all rise. It has an exponential effect. So as this energy begins to rise, you'll feel it in your body. And so I went to Ava's, and I put my hand here and on her back, and I just spoke release. You know, we know how to do this stuff. But I speak what I hear. And so I heard that she needed release. And it was prior to that that you had had stents put in. And so 5 stents, so she knew what a heart attack felt like. And yet here I am looking at her, a woman who's had a heart attack, and I'm saying, it's not a heart attack, it's just energy. And you know what? It wasn't a heart attack, it was energy.
Somehow I knew that too. I knew that it
There's a
wasn't, I wasn't
knowing.
in a heart attack.
There is a knowing.
It felt like it, but I knew it.
Yeah. And the same thing happened at Lynn's this last summer. It's because that's when you spoke about hate. And you experienced not only a release for yourself, but probably others in the room, and you did the same thing. And came to me and said, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. And so we went to the back room and just brought my attention and awareness and her attention and intention and awareness to the place of congestion and said, release. And again, I'm telling you these things because you're going to start experiencing these things.
Yeah, and can I say that when we did that at Lynn's, that wasn't a 1 or 2 minute little thing. It took us an hour for me to get that worked all the way through to release. So I knew then I wasn't carrying just myself, that I had seen so many things released in the room, and because I had stood up there opened, I had just took them in me, and then when I sat down, it hit me all at one time. And it took Barbara's assistant me for an hour we worked, and it was painful. It was painful. I mean, I did have that imagination to say, oh my gosh, you know, they're going to have to call an ambulance and take me to the hospital because I am having a heart attack. At that point, it was so strong, one of the strongest. It was more painful than the heart attack that I had suffered, literally, for several years.
And that's energy in your energy body. As we become more and more aware of the movement of energy, let me back up. As we begin to let go of judgment that keeps you down here, as you begin to let go of judgment, something wonderful happens. You begin to go through this ascension process. Remember, when I talk about baptism, baptism is not for the human aspect of ourselves. It is for divinity to see through the ritual and to begin to awaken to its own journey. Its own journey from all that is said, I will find myself a helpmate. I will find myself a helpmate. And what divinity does is it becomes fishers of men. It becomes fishers of men. because it needs this human counterpart in order to manifest through. So as you begin to leave behind human judgment, you will begin to experience ascension and ascension symptoms depending upon how much issues you have to work through. But it's all a good process, it's all a good thing that's happening. And we're going to get into more of that either later on today or tomorrow to talk about these symptoms of ascension. Okay? A lot of question marks. It's all good. These things are all purposeful, they're all supernatural, they're all wonderful, and they're bringing us to a place that we need to be. And it's not just Avis that I've seen this happening. I've seen it in hundreds, if not thousands of people. We are living, breathing energy spheres. We have an energy body. We are beginning to understand what it is to have this wheel within a wheel that manifests around us, that moves us interdimensionally. We're just in the beginning stages of understanding something, a technology that has been there all along. But you are being given the charge today to step aside from judgment, human judgment, and to move into the next age. And we will have precarious seasons because one of our feet is in the water and one of our feet is on the land. But this process of baptism that I was talking about, divinity has seen that it is supposed to take this journey from eternity and into mortality. And so the symbolism of baptism is that divinity holds its divine breath while it sits under the waters of dense human consciousness. But there is a day, listen to me, there is a day for resurrection, and that day is at hand. We are beginning to come up and come out of the waters of dense human consciousness. And for those that will heed the call, for those that understand, if you're one that will help transition the age, you are the forerunning element that will help break the way for the rest of humanity. I'm telling you that the day to apprehend this next portion of our walk is at hand. It is within our grasp. The kingdom is it's at hand. And it's simple.
It is simple.
It's simple. It's simple. But it's going to take for you to repent, change the way that you see reality, and to begin to look in a different direction.
Glory, hallelujah.
Not knee-jerk reactions to judgment. That guy's a jerk. He cut me off. You're going to be stepping into a position of power and authority, and you're going to have to be careful what you say, what you think, and what you do, because you're entering into a new increment of glory, a holier place that requires holier things.
Yes. Yes.
And it's upon us. Good stuff? Okay. Yes, sir.
When I was looking at your picture, one of the key characteristics that I am just noting is that as you go up, you're increasing in frequency.
Exactly.
And when you transition from a lower, it doesn't matter which one, but a lower to its next adjacent frequency, judgment is an inhibition of the energy transfer. And so if you release the judgment, you are facilitating or releasing its inhibition for the energy to transfer from a lower area to a higher area. In these colors that we see, we can see those with our eyes. And that's the visual dimensionality of, if you will, that we're born with in this set of dimensions of this human existence. We can see these. And it doesn't mean that there are not others, that there are not others that we can hear, that there are not others that we have other senses.
This is within our spectrum.
That's within our visual spectrum. And so as we release the inhibition and let judgment have its full effect, it is an inhibitor for the time that it needs to be.
Exactly.
And once that's fulfilled, then it loses its energy. It doesn't need to be there. And so it's
Exactly. The seed needs to be buried in darkness in order to reap the treasures thereof. It has to be. The seed that is Christ, the seed that is your humanity, needs to be in darkness to pull up the nutrients from the soil. And so it's not bad and it's not wrong. It's frequency and it's vibration and it serves us. But John is absolutely right. As you begin to leave aside judgment and you begin to enter into these more fluid realms, what happens is the frequency within your body begins to rise. And not only does it begin to rise, but it becomes incompatible with lower frequencies.
Yes.
And that's not that you judge it, but you can walk by somebody and go, oh, because you can feel that there's incompatibility. But the very nature of your high vibration will bring that up in its train. What is it said of Christ? That he descended and that he ascended and led captivity captive in its train. So you can affect change just by being. You don't have to speak a word. When your vibration increases to a point where it's high, everything else is caught up in that frequency. Forgive me, I lack the terminology to bridge the gap in understanding, but I'm so thankful that you brought that up because it is just a change in frequency. And the kingdom is a higher frequency than what is here on the earth. And what's happening right now is it is pressing into our environment and we're experiencing this place of the overlap, the place of overlapping dimensions. And in this place of the overlap is when you're going to go from one age to the next. As you increase in your frequency, and the way that you increase in frequency is you leave behind the driver that maintains and sustains this dimension, and that is judgment, unforgiveness, harboring these lower energies in your body. As you leave it behind, no matter how you're instructed to do it, and you each will receive instruction from your higher self, which is Christ. You each will receive instruction and you will be able to navigate these places of your personal past and transmute the energy into something that is higher and more compatible with the age to come.
Yes.
My last, in the same sense, from lower to higher of what you see, it's a pattern. From this to that, same pattern applied slightly differently from this to some other set of dimensions that has within that set of its own patterns. And that's what you're saying is, as we move, if you wish, beyond what we can see here, our sight, that sight that we're used to using and seeing, has fulfilled its reason for being there, so that the other senses of our vision in these other dimensions then start taking effect. That's the overlap of the picture that you were describing.
And these are all necessary.
They are.
All of these are necessary. Let me, please hold your thought, Mike. Let me finish with this, and then, Mike, I'm going to ask you to say, you know, there was a really good example in Scripture, and you've heard me talk about this before, that Jesus pulled from his experience being acquainted with grief and stricken and with affliction. That's us. It's not a man 2,000 years ago. This is us. And the story goes that he goes to raise Lazarus from the dead. And he's not concerned with his friend. It takes him 2 days, 4 days to walk 2 miles. He's not moved, but he knows his best friend is dying. Yet he's not moved in his emotions. He waits to get there and says, bring him to me, or bring me to him. And he goes to the grave, and what does he do? What does Jesus do? At that time, his emotions did not move him for 4 days. He gets there, and he says, take me to him. And he goes to the grave, and he goes, Lazarus! That's what I say to us today. We're standing in that place on the verge of something amazing. And the Christ is you is calling you to resurrection. And these steps are easy and they're simple and they're yours for the taking. He groaned in his spirit He did not, he was not moved by his emotions. He moved his emotions. He called upon currency within his energy body, and it projected a currency and a vibration out that caused the dead to rise. That's our mortal nature that is being called to ascension. So we have to step aside from these emotions that have pulled us to and fro and that have rocked our ship. And we need to say, like a servant, I will no longer be mastered by these things, but I will allow the master to use everything at his disposal. And I am here, and I am the helpmate, and I surrender.
I had one more thing. Jenny said remove the grave clothes.
Yes,
And the grave clothes is the illusion.
remove the grave clothes.
Remove the veil.
That's your mortality. Mike.
When you hold that picture up, that color is in that light that shines through that window from the sun. And we can see that light when a prism is put in place in the sun. And it's a dispersion of the light. It's not a breaking down or a bending or a distortion, but it's a clarifying. And when you got down and called Lazarus forth a while ago, when we look at time and we say the crucifixion happened here, the incarnation here, and the resurrection here, we place those in our past. But when you do that and we bring those things to now, removing time, and we realize that resurrection is now, in the present moment, ongoing, continuously, all the time for all of us. That to me is what you just demonstrated.
It's powerful. And you know, for those that don't know this, maybe stand up. Come on here. It's my hero. Because here's a man that for our entire married life did not show emotion. Totally driven by logic. And his emotions were kept in a place that were not visible. And I sought to understand him my whole married life. Why doesn't he cry? Why doesn't he care? Why doesn't he understand? Why does he not be sensitive? And he even was brought to a psychologist from, they tested all the executives at his company, and the psychologist said, Lyle, I've never seen anyone like you. You scored a 0 in sensitivity. And I said, and he came home and told me that I broke because my life made sense. It wasn't something that I could convince him to do. It wasn't something that he was doing on purpose. It was not something that was in his nature until he groaned and raised Chris from the dead. And the Spirit told me just a few months back that him, his identity as divinity, as Christ, knew for where he was in his conscious evolution that he needed to store all of his emotional currency for that moment.
Wow. Yes.
And since then, Christ.
Baby.
Navigating new and unprecedented areas in our walk. And it's all good. Thank you.
You know, as for me, I want to say that going through this and some of the things that I have felt, and some of you may relate to and not understand because I didn't. And when I get with Barbara and I start talking and we start sharing and she starts helping me see and understand and fit this stuff in. And as she was talking and remembering and the times that she assisted me to raise that energy and to release it each time I raised that up through my chakra system, I've been able to do that on my own a few times. It hasn't been as strong that I needed to release, but there was times and situations that I could feel that energy that needed to be released, and I've been able to do it. But in doing that, our roots down here at the bottom of them lower chakras is where we have attachment to family, to others. We have our tribal instincts for our family, and coming up out of that and going now into a higher place in me, I began to lose my attachment to my children and my grandchildren. Do I love them? Yes. But I've lost the attachment that I need to be an influence in their life. That I have to be there for them. That I have to be the mother. That I have to be the grandmother. That I have to have a role. I've lost that attachment to mother and daddy, to brother and sister, to every physical attachment. So as you're ascending and going through this and you start losing that, I mean, there's been times I thought I was losing my mind because I thought, what's wrong with me that I can't feel that? It was gone. It was gone. And I've told her I sometimes felt so lost. I don't feel like I belong here anymore. Because see, I'm losing my physical, that lower attachment that was the healthy earth. I'm losing some of that need to be grounded in that to give me an identity. And that's, you may start feeling this as you're ascending. Some of you probably already have. And some of you may are yet to come to start losing that. And know when you begin to lose it, you're not losing your mind. Them things that is that release that is, and it's no longer needed for where we're going with our creation. Does that make sense? I can see that in that. I can see why now some of the things that I have felt, some of the things that I have experienced, because it's no longer a necessary part of that. As long as I live in that realm, it was very necessary. But it's no longer. So when you begin to see that, don't think you're losing your mind. If you have to pick up the phone, call Barbara, she'll help you.
Brother, I need to go home with you.
You said you don't want to eat.
Yeah.
All three of my sons have been in war. The first two was in Vietnam. My second son is in the VA nursing home today from Vietnam. So I mean, I kind of accepted things. But my third son, my youngest son, went to Iraq. The first time I kind of accepted, I knew he was coming back. He was a lieutenant. His buddy was a lieutenant. He came back. They came back all. He talked about the bullets, the shooting, the guns. We deal with it. And I didn't cry. When my first two boys went to war, I didn't cry. Somewhere in me, I knew they were going to come back, and they did. All of them didn't, but my boys did. And when my baby, my youngest son, the first time he went to Iraq, I watched him being the lieutenant. He had to meet his baby. He said, Dad, take care of my baby. Me and his wife was down there, and he went for the families of every one of his men. Assured his whole family that the boy would be okay, and he would watch them all that stuff. He had a soft cap on.
No, I can't get it.
So his driver, when they got ready to leave, the guy got ready to leave, his driver brought his Jeep around, and in the front seat of the Jeep, there was a hard hat. I seen my son, and my mind instantaneously changed from peace to war. Because he was gonna lead the platoon, you know, the platoon out.
I'll play a game.
And he reached and took his soft cap off and put that hard hat on him that quick. In my eyes, he was a man of peace to a man of war. And Dad no longer mattered. It was his guys. I mean, he didn't shed a tear. He grabbed me and hugged my neck and said, take care of my family. Okay. The last time he went to Iraq. Again, I was at the camp and I watched him. This time he drove his own machine to the airport. And when you talk about breaking, and you said, my heart, I felt my heart was going to literally pull out of my body. And I kept thinking, why is this? Why am I now? Why all of a sudden do I feel all this now? I don't know if I know it. Of course, he come back, he's okay. But when I think of this, I've been a ball. I cried nothing. Have you ever had anything like that happen to you? You don't know why you weep. I was telling, I told you two about it. My grandpa, on my mama's side, was Cherokee Indian. And he, sometime in the early 1800s, he walked away from the Indian reservation in Oklahoma. But whether my grandma was with him in a little bit, I don't know that. But we went to Lynn's last November to the camp. If I remember, that's the place where they had their last meeting before they began their march.
Yeah, the Trail of Tears.
Yeah. Of course, the Trail of Tears comes down through Mississippi, and Natchez Trace, and I mean, if you've ever been on it, it's horrible. Every time I drive that Natchez Trace from Nashville, Tennessee to Gulf Coast, it's filled with horror. They died like flies. But Avis was on the computer, and we were sitting in the living room, and I flipped in channels, and all of a sudden this old Western movie, black and white, I mean, it was old. And I stopped because I seen an Indian camp. I just stopped. Well, last November we went to Lynn, and there was one tribe, I just bawled, because I could relate. And they were sharing all their symbols and everything, and though my family never did practice any of that, I always knew it was there. So when I flipped through these channels, I see my grandpa. And he was walking away from the old teepees and they still have them somewhere in New Mexico and Arizona. But my grandpa would walk, and he had walked to a creek that run by the camp. And instantaneously, I seen me. That may not make sense to you. But I had to know what I seen. I became crying. It was just punching about. She didn't cry. But I bawled. I want to know what I seen. So I called two people that had influenced my life probably more than anybody in the world. And Avis told me what I said. I had seen me walking away from whatever I had been in my grandpa, in the natural sense. Though somebody said I was on my grandpa's shoulders, I was in my grandpa's loins. And when Grandpa walked away from that reservation, it spoke volume to me. For years and years and years, I have preached him all that thing, and it showed me that I was literally walking away from everything that had been. I literally broke ties, and like Amos said, you lose that bondage. May that only you that this meeting has been a world. Thank you. I'm free.
Amen.
I'm free from what has been. Shall we go to lunch or shall we continue?